right, let's move on to let's talk about some. Let's actually before we go into non IRL basketball, let's talk about um Derrick Rose.
Oh,
You
let's do
wanted
it.
this. You wanted this. You
I
wanted
bet.
this.
I bet.
All right. So Derrick Rose made a comment. He's got a book coming out called "I'll Show You." Um, and in the book, he talks about the situation that happened with the famous or infamous Jimmy Butler practice with the Timberwolves, where he yelled at, um, management and said, "You need me on this team. You want me on that wall. You need me on that wall." He just went all Jack Nicholson, Few Good Men, all the just all nuts, right? So, Rose basically explained everything that went down in that in that practice. He said Jimmy took one shot. He said, so people are saying he dominated or whatever. He said he took one shot. So I don't know what people are talking about with that. That's insane. But he did agree with Jimmy by saying that he felt that you got these kids and you give them all this money and you baby them and they haven't really proved anything. um and I disagree with Rose making those comments. I don't think that that's something that he should have said.
I'm
And here's
surprised
and
that.
here's the
What?
reason why I don't,
Okay.
right? Because there was a time when you were the youngest MVP in NBA history and people took shots at you because they said you didn't deserve it. They said you didn't deserve the MVP. You got it because they caught lightning in a bottle, blah, 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 blah. There was all these other players that deserved it more than you did. Your shooting percentages with this, you had this amount of turnovers, all of that. Put yourself in that situation where you were then, and all of the haters and the people that you had criticizing you. And even if you have a point about what you're saying about Karl-Anthony Towns, and like he said, I like Karl-Anthony Towns, and then this is nothing. He said this is nothing personal to Karl-Anthony Towns. He wasn't criticizing Towns as much as he was criticizing the process, right? What was going on? I still feel that he seems to have forgotten that at one point he was that guy, and that I think is wrong. Now he's still my dog to the end of the wall. He still is. That ain't gonna never. That's not gonna change. Like Derrick Rose got to do something really heinous for him not to be my guy. So, but just because you my guy, don't mean I think you always right. And in this situation, I think he was wrong.
I am I am genuinely shocked that
How?
upon saying the words "I disagree with Rose," you did not literally turn into a pillar of salt.
What?
That you did not literally fall to the ground and have a seizure as
One night ain't that
as
said
you.
I'm gonna hang the book up on the wall right next to Malcolm X. You know what? I think that's a good spot right
Yeah.
there. I think it's
Yep.
a beautiful spot. You know what? As a matter of
Highlight that
fact,
page and take
as
it
a
out.
matter of fact, I think I'm gonna get a Derrick Rose poster and put it right there. And then I think I'm gonna get a LeBron poster and put it right there.
Disgusting. Where's the Jimmy poster gonna go? Where you gonna put the Jimmy Butler poster?
uh
I don't want to know what you was looking at just now.
no, I wasn't
But
looking down there. I don't want Jimmy Butler nowhere near.
so so my man Derek Martell Rose
Don't
highlight.
don't you ever say Derek's middle name with that level of familiarity, and you don't ride with Pooh like that. Don't you do that.
Listen, man.
That is
Listen.
just flat disrespectful.
When someone has enlightened insight, it doesn't matter what they've done in the past. I'm just going to address that astute point of view that they expressed. And what I was saying about the Jimmy Butler situation, and I've said this about other situations before. The player that I actually targeted was Andrew Wiggins, because they gave Andrew Wiggins a big unearned contract. And before Jimmy Butler got there, They didn't make the playoffs and didn't necessarily come particularly close with the on the court product, and
Mm-hmm.
looked like something that if they did go to the playoffs, they would get immediately obliterated by whoever was in first place. And the entire time, the Towns and Wiggins were there. Jimmy goes there, and they not only make the playoffs, but they were in third place until Jimmy hurt his knee.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they had a chance to be better than that if he had been healthy. All right. So, on a day-to-day basis, when you see that the problem with the team is that the young players on your team aren't doing the things to succeed, and you have a contract coming up, and they are not being pushed to do the things to succeed, and then you say, I find this unacceptable because this is not going to be a winning situation. You keep treating these guys like this, they're never going to learn. I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. I'm going to quietly go to management and say, hey, I'm not resigning. Do me a favor and get me out of here. Situation ain't for me. And management is going to be like, thanks for playing. Go back and do your job. Then that's when you start acting out. I don't look at it the same way as if you'd been a locker room cancer the entire time. And Derrick Rose is basically saying, I saw the same exact things Jimmy saw. It
You know
wasn't
what?
that Jimmy was a guy who was just some born loser who can't work with anybody. Jimmy brought a winning mentality here. And it's one thing
I
for the
disagree
young
with
player. Let me
that.
just finish the statement. It's one thing for, well, they won. So the thing is, Jimmy won. They started winning when Jimmy got there. He left. They lost, and Philly got better. So literally every time Jimmy's on a team, they make the playoffs. Every time Wiggins is on a team by himself and Towns as a duo, no playoffs, right? So when Jimmy said y'all need me, apparently that was the case. But that's neither here nor there right now. Point being is Jimmy had ample reason to believe, especially with his history with the head coach and in the case of this year, Derrick Rose, that his way was the right way and that Towns and Wiggins' way was most definitely the wrong way. And he's saying, even with the head coach on my side, you guys are not going to discipline these people so that they can grow into better people. I'm not with it. Get me out of here. I gave you guys a chance to do it. I did my part, got you to the playoffs for the first time, I believe it was 14 years. You're not doing your part. He quietly, peacefully asked them to get him out of there.
Huh?
They basically,
What?
no, he did. He did. Before then, this was handled behind closed doors, widely publicized.
Uh-huh.
Then they would not do it. And I don't know if this is Thibodeau's fault. It's widely speculated that Thibodeau was the one who was saying, no, we'll just hold on to Jimmy no
Yeah.
matter what. He'll be fine. That's still an error on management's behalf. Because here's the thing. If that's Thibodeau's attitude, then your attitude has to be, then we're going to give Jimmy what he wants. You're not just going to keep Jimmy kicking and screaming, hating his environment, knowing that it's not going to get better against his will. He's going to resist you. And that's what he did. And that's what we saw after the fact. His display in that practice was not the first thing he said about getting out of there. He tried to do it behind closed doors. They wouldn't acquiesce. And the problem with these players' contracts is they have no other recourse than to use the publicity against the organization. And that's what Jimmy did. And
Okay.
Derrick has had Jimmy's back and gave us the truth and showed us the light and said Books was right. And for Derrick Martell Pooh Rose, I'm so grateful to you.
Okay.
Thank you, Derrick.
So let me allow me to clarify this once again, which I've done this before, but we're gonna do it again. I never ever said that what Jimmy said wasn't right. Right? I never said that, Andrew Wiggins wasn't was a complete basketball player, and he doesn't need to play better defense. That karl-Anthony Towns didn't need to play better defense. I didn't say any of that stuff. My problem with Jimmy from the beginning was throwing his teammates under the bus. He went to management, as you said, and well, this is what the report is. He went to management and he said, I would like to be traded. Okay. So they weren't moving fast enough, or they told him, they denied his trade request. So now his way of getting out of the situation is to now say, okay, so management isn't responding to me. Now I'm going to start pointing a gun at guys who have nothing to do with making the decision that I want to be made. You know, they're not decision makers in this situation. But I'm going to try to create a big enough stink here where they're going to I'm going to force them into it, even if that means kind of backstabbing some of my teammates. Because Karl-Anthony Towns, Andrew Wiggins, or whatever, they weren't going anywhere talking about Jimmy, and they never did. As a matter of fact, I got an opportunity to sit with Karl-Anthony Towns and interview him while this was happening. Me and both of my sons went to Minnesota for a 2K event. Karl-Anthony Towns, was 2K Playgrounds. I sat down there and I asked him about this, right? And in every other interview that you saw of him, Karl-Anthony Towns always took the high road,
Yeah.
even while Jimmy was throwing him under the bus.
He's
And
a smart kid with nothing to gain from
he's
responding to Jimmy.
a smart kid who has who has a personality that I would much more prefer to deal with than somebody like Jimmy Butler, whether we were on a team or at the freaking movies. It doesn't matter, right?
Let me see Karl Towns in 6 years on a contract year.
But I still don't think Karl-Anthony Towns becomes a guy that throws guys under the bus. I just don't think that's part of the way he does things. Jimmy is that guy. He's that kind of guy. He just is. You know, he's just that kind. Some people have that type of thing in their personality. Some people don't.
So here's the thing that I think.
Hold on, let me finish. For what we've seen from Jimmy, this is the type of dude that he is. This is what he does. I have never criticized Jimmy Butler's game. Never. I have never done it. Jimmy worked his butt off to get to where he is. Jimmy is an athletic guy, but his arms are short. Jimmy wasn't a great shooter. It wasn't a really good ball handler when he got to the league, but he has compensated for the lack of arm length to become an elite level defender. He is a fantastic scorer from several different situations, whether it's post-up game, off the drive. He's become a much better outside shooter. Jimmy is a dog, but Jimmy is a type of dude that devoured, and I do think he's getting out of it, though, because this last 2-3 months, as well as in the playoffs with Philly, I thought that the way he handled himself and the way he handled things was exemplary. I said that on Twitter. I think I said that on a previous show around the time when 76ers were still active, alive in the playoffs. So I saw a different Jimmy Butler later this season and in the postseason. But that particular act with Minnesota, I thought, is where I had the problem. You don't throw your teammates under the bus just to try to get management to do something. I disagree with that approach, and that's really just been it. That's it. You know, people can say Cat is soft. People can say Wiggins doesn't play defense. He doesn't care. All of that is probably true to a degree, right? But Jimmy coming out and coming at those guys like that because he's trying to force a trade, I just can't respect that. I just can't respect that. You know, I just can't respect that. That's just me. I played on several teams, obviously not professional teams, but I've been on teams, and I've been on teams with people who I didn't think were trying as hard as me or whatever. I've been on teams because effort has never been my problem. If I'm playing anything, I am playing to win. We could be playing marbles. I'm trying to roll my balls farther than you roll your balls. You know what I'm saying? But I played with people who wasn't doing it, but I never resorted to that kind of a thing. You know what I mean? I never did. I played behind people who I thought weren't as good.
And here's the thing. I've seen a lot of really, really, really competitive people who are also really, really successful at what they do. Like literally tops in the world at what they do. And my issue with Jimmy is that you're saying Jimmy's style doesn't work. And I'm saying that his
I don't think his
personality type, you
style
said
works for a winning
can't
environment.
win. You can't win it. It can't be in a winning environment, despite the fact that, you know, he always makes the playoffs, and he's always doing his part. And the reason that his team lose,
winning championships.
I understand you saying winning championships, but he's never been on a team that underachieved, in my estimation. So it didn't seem like his attitude was the reason his teams lost. It's usually either talent or health, was the reason his teams lost. Those Bulls looked like they were going to beat Boston, and then Rondo got hurt. They really needed him. Philadelphia had a much better chance against Toronto if Joel Embiid wasn't hobbling, right? So I don't see any evidence that Jimmy's. I think that's a personal prejudice that you have because you don't like Jimmy's way, and I think that's totally okay that you don't like Jimmy's way. But I'm saying when it comes to competition, there's a lot of ways to skin that cat. And when you're trying to be excellent, sometimes you don't vibe with people who aren't excellent at what they do, or at least trying to be excellent. And sometimes that filtration system is ugly. It just is. Sometimes when somebody sucks, you just go up to their face and say, "You suck," and you're a bad person because of it. And if you show up here every day sucking like that, it's gonna be the worst time of your life. I'm gonna be the worst person you ever knew because everything you hate about yourself that you really believe when you wake up in the morning, it's gonna be true, reflected in me every time you come up here. And I don't think you could change. And you have two options: change or leave, because this right here is gonna be hell. And for a lot of people, that's how they get all the scrubby people out of their life, and they wind up around people who are like them. And it's not always fun. And it's not always kumbaya. It's not always a great story of sportsmanship and camaraderie. Sometimes it's just a bunch of semi-evil, psychopathic, driven people who might not be bad people. But when it comes to this, if you ain't with it, you don't want to be about it with them at all. And you need to know that. But they win. They succeed. And so your contention that Jimmy Butler can't be successful, I feel like is based off of a prejudice, not any real evidence. If Jimmy Butler, like I said with DeMarcus Cousins, I don't have a personal problem with DeMarcus. His antics on the court, I've seen a lot of emotional players. It doesn't bother me. I think he needs to tighten it up. And yeah, he could get in better shape. My issue with DeMarcus is his teams always seem worse when he plays. Just is. I would have to break down every minute of his life to see why in the NBA it just seems like get him out of here and we'll be better. But that just seems to be the case. It almost reminds me of Melo to a degree. Melo's this great player, but very often it seems like if you just got Melo out of there for a person who was a little worse but played better D and moved the ball more, your team would just be better for some reason. And it's not Melo's fault. He's not a bad guy. He's a good guy. But he's just kind of a loser, at least as an NBA player. I don't think I think Jimmy's literally the opposite. He's kind of a jerk. But as an NBA player, I don't think he's a loser. And I don't think there's any evidence to show that. I think you get him in the right environment, and he totally works just fine. I've seen a lot of guys like Jimmy Butler work. They just usually have either a little more talent or a little less talent. So you either don't pay attention or you excuse it. Oh, it's okay when so-and-so does it because blah, blah, blah. But then
Yeah,
once they get that championship, you can't say nothing about him. And you just never talk about him anymore. Not you personally, but that's how people treat the
no,
conversation.
I feel you. I feel my stance on Jimmy is that I don't think Jimmy will ever be the best player on a championship team. He will not be, and that's where I've always drawn the line with Jimmy. I don't even think he'll be the second best player on a championship team. I just think unless he plays and goes about his business the way he did in the postseason with Philly, because he had to see some things, especially with Ben Simmons, that bothered him. He had to. And here's the thing. My point is, I'm not saying that you don't approach these guys. See, the scenario and the example that you just gave was him going to those people and saying, dude, what you doing? This is not enough. You are not a winner. You're not playing like a winner. That's totally different. That's totally different. But when you go talking to the media and you
But
going
isn't that what he did with the practice, though? Like he was right in their faces,
yeah,
literally,
but but
literally
but
beating them in
but
the
the thing of
practice.
it is that the people available, the practice is fine. The interview after the practice was where it got to me to the point like, okay, dude, what are you doing? What are you doing? If this happened in practice and that's where it was supposed to stay, then why are you doing the interview with Rachel? And you're talking about it and you're adding specifics to it. And now you're validating this fact that you went after karl-Anthony Towns. You went after Andrew Wiggins. To me, at that point, that's when it starts to become self-serving. And it's not about trying to make them better. It's not about trying to make the team better. It's about literally, I want to get out of here and I'm about to cut a fool.
Oh,
I'm
I agree
about
with
to
you.
cut a
I think
complete
that was
fool.
the case. And the thing that I say about that is that's after a year and a playoff season of him trying to make it work without a Pete. It'd
But
be one thing if he jumped in there day one and was just like, "Oh, these guys are soft. I'm going to trash them all year. Get me out of here." He was a model teammate publicly for a year and the playoffs.
yeah, it's a different philosophy for me. I just don't.
That's my point. I think it is a different philosophy for
Yeah,
you,
because
and I think
and like 1989 is talking about what LeBron did. What LeBron did was wrong. Coming into going into the media, criticize, like, all players hate this, bro. They all hate this. Nobody likes, and it doesn't. It never fixes anything. It never fixes anything.
well,
I
it got
never.
Jimmy to Philly, so
It
it
got
fixed
Jimmy.
something for him.
It got Jimmy to Philly, but he didn't win there either.
Again, Toronto's a better team than Philly. They were better all year. Philly didn't have the shooting. Like, so when you say, and that's my thing right there. Like, you take in Jimmy's philosophy that you don't agree with. I think it's fine that you don't agree with it. I'm not even saying it's the optimal philosophy. Do I think Jimmy could be better? Yeah. Do I think that he needs to be better to win a championship and be the second or third best player on the championship team? No. He just needs to be in the right environment where he doesn't act out in that way. And if and when he does, the guys are able to take it, be like, shut up, Jimmy. And they go about their business and he respects them. So, a few days later, he's going to be like, sorry about Tuesday in his own way. And it'll be fine. And this happens on championship teams all the time. That's my
Yes,
point.
but you
And so,
change it
real quick,
when you have to apologize for what you did in the
but
media and not what you said behind closed doors.
when you say, but Philly lost two, as in Philly didn't win a championship, that makes it seem like Jimmy's attitude had something to do with that. And we've said on the show a billion times, Ben Simmons refusing to get even a grade school level of jump shot, Philly not having enough shooting coming off of their bench, Philly getting rid of Markelle Fultz and not replacing him with an adequate backup point guard, that and Joel Embiid being hobbled, in addition to the fact that Toronto's a genuinely very good team and Kawhi Leonard is better than everybody on Philly, that's why they lost. It wasn't Jimmy's attitude.
No, I know.
So,
I didn't. I
but
wasn't.
so
I
you
wasn't.
can't. So then you can't associate. You can't be like Jimmy got a bad
No,
attitude. Well,
no.
and I
I
think he's
wasn't.
never going to win. Well, that's why he didn't win. He didn't win in Philly. When you say he didn't win in Philly after talking about his attitude, it makes them associated. It's not associated. Philly's
No,
not as good as Toronto.
I don't agree with that. It doesn't associate it. I said we were talking about him getting into a better situation. And yeah, okay, you got to the playoffs, but that's not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is to win a championship. So yeah, you got into temporarily a better situation because you got out of Minnesota a year early, um, when you were headed for free agency anyway at the end of the season. So you were trying to get into a situation, because here's the thing: at the end of the season you could have gone wherever you wanted to go anyway. So it does matter where you landed, because you were looking for some immediate gratification, because it wasn't as if you got your way out of a team that you were signed to play with for 2 to 3 more seasons. You were going to leave at the end of the season anyway, but you got so to the point, you got so to where you were, you couldn't even do the last 3 months. You wanted out now because you wanted to land someplace where you thought you had a chance to win now, win a championship now. Because he didn't just go run the Philly so he could have a playoff run. He ran the Philly so he could win a championship, and he didn't win a championship. I'm not saying they didn't win because of Jimmy. Jimmy played great in the postseason, and he also behaved great in a way that is conducive to keeping your teammates involved and keeping your teammates on your side. My whole point, as I said, is not about what he said. It's about when he said it and who he said it to. There's a
And
lot of things that you can say to family, to teammates, that if you just said it to them, it would be permissible. But when you start going to tell other people, is when you break a bond. And that to me is the same regardless. Because we can't talk about loyalty and all this different kind of stuff in one breath and then want to embrace the business side of it in another. And I think that's what a lot of people are doing. They're like, oh, well, this is business. He trying to get what he trying to get. He got to get what he got
well,
to get. He got to
I
win.
think loyalty is reciprocal. And a lot of times when you have a teammate or a family situation, that bond is broken behind the scenes long before, and then you see the results of it long after. And the indication seemed to be that Jimmy Butler, after a year with those guys, decided that that bond was no longer in place and peacefully asked for a resolution. Didn't get it and said, if you won't bring peace, I'll bring war. And then he did. I understand that you disagree with that, but at the times that we were having those conversations, you made it sound like wherever Jimmy went, that would be the issue. And that I don't think that's the case, and that has proven to not be the case, and that seems to be your thinking on it now.
Yeah,
And so, and
I
Derrick
think as
Martell
long as
Rose agrees with both of us here.
no, yeah, I think as long as he is, if he continues to throw guys under the bus in the media, yeah, it will be detrimental to winning the championship. That's all. That's it. That's my point. It
Yeah,
may
but he's not doing that on teams that he's staying on. He's doing that on teams he's trying to get out of.
but at some point, it's like if it doesn't work out, that's what he does. That's what he goes to. That's his go-to move. That's his go-to move. The same way as Kobe's the turnaround jump shot in the post is Kobe and Mike's go-to move. This is his go-to move when things get tight. Start crapping on people, on my teammates in the media. He did it in Chicago. He did it in Minnesota. Probably the only reason he didn't do it in Philly is because all eyes are on you and your behavior right now, and it's a contract year. So the worst thing that you could do is further muddy your reputation as a potential locker room cancer. So I don't know, man. I just like I said, that's just to me a no. That's just
well, you know, in closing, I think this seems like an excellent book from Pooh Rose.
I'm excited to see it and read it.
I love what he wrote so far, and I think we've proven without a shadow of a doubt that you have an unreasonable bias against Jimmy Butler because he hurt you, and that's okay. It's okay.
I give Jimmy Butler all credit that is due.